Rerouting. We all get this notification from our GPS when we have taken a wrong turn. And let's be honest, it's pretty frustrating and usually inconvenient.
All of us have also experienced this with many life plans. What if we told you that when God's hand is in it, those so-called wrong turns are actually his very best turns? That frustration when you hear the word rerouting, it should actually look a lot more like rejoicing.
Friends, we serve a God with much, much higher ways than our own. He is the God of immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine.
Today, we're telling a story that transpired from the broken dreams of a high school girl. She now looks back on those dreams years later with unending gratitude. They have yielded the abundantly full life she's living today.
We will introduce you to Angie in just a few moments. At the time that this story was unfolding, it felt as if Angie's world was falling apart. Little did she know God's hand was all over it, weaving detail after detail together for his glory as well as Angie's good.
When you really stop and think about it, this has always been God's way. He's always been a God of abundance. Is there any reason other than God's beyondness that can explain why when he decided to create water, he just went ahead and created whole oceans? Wasn't the intense heat and mass and splendor of a single star impressive enough all on its own? Did he really need to go and create entire galaxies, ranging with billions and billions of stars, most of which no human eye will ever see?
We hope that Angie's story of God delivering exceedingly and abundantly beyond what she could have ever imagined will encourage you in your rerouted plans. Besides, where's the excitement in everything going according to our limited human minds? If your map reads rerouting right now, rejoice, trust, and prepare to taste God's abundance.
Without further ado, we present to you the grace story of Miss Angie Bates.
Hi, I'm Angie Bates, and this is my grace story. I approached my senior year with high anticipation for all of my hopes and dreams perhaps coming to fruition in that year, but as is a senior girl, I had a really strong outlook. I was excited for the basketball season. I needed to make some decisions about college and had begun to receive some notifications and some calls from some colleges that I was very interested in. I was 3 years into a relationship with my boyfriend, and we had begun discussions even with our families about how we wanted that relationship to continue in college and what that looked like, and just excited to be a senior. And I took my first college visit. That was the college that my boyfriend was currently attending. He was a sophomore there, and as it worked out, I was one of their picks for their upcoming freshman basketball team the following year. So it seemed to be the obvious option to me. I'm not sure my parents saw it that way at the time, and I had some other college visits scheduled just to appease them as if I had an open mind. But that was really where my heart was already. That's where my boyfriend was. I loved the basketball team there. I mean, everything seemed so crystal clear. So I took my visit, and it was at the visit that I began to feel the unraveling of what I had gripped onto so tightly, this dream I had for how the following 4 years was going to go. And I remember on that visit, it wasn't any kind of circumstances. It was more just a feeling inside of me that something was about to happen that was going to redirect my life. And I met with the coaches, I met with the other players, all the pieces were there, everything seemed to be in a row. And I remember midway through that tour, I went back to her dorm room and just let these emotions go in her room by myself, just cried. I knew that there was something coming, I could feel it in my spirit, and that God was trying to tell me to halt when I was ready to go full steam ahead with my plan. I just cried that stress out that day and actually cried myself to sleep. And I don't know how long I slept, but I'll never, for the rest of my life, forget the moment that I woke up. It was this moment where I woke up very warm. The sun had positioned itself right so it was shining on me through this window. And so I was all sweaty and I woke up and just tired, that after you cry yourself to sleep tired. I'm sure my eyes were swollen. Nobody needed to see me. And there was this song playing in one of the other rooms it was so loud, and it was talking about heaven. It was talking about imagining when we get to heaven. I'd never heard this song before. And I had a peace just sweep over me, and a calmness just quenched my heart. And so from that moment, I decided that I would just take one step at a time, one foot in front of the other, and I was going to trust God. That this would be the moment that I would remember as I walked this, and as I began to see what His plan was. This would be the moment that I would remember that He is with me, and He has the plan figured out, even though I don't. And so the visit finishes, and we go back home and slip back into the regular routines of that senior year. And 7 games into my senior year basketball season, I blew out my knee and was done for the season. All the colleges I had been talking to got real quiet, and I didn't hear from that university or much from any of the others that I was supposedly keeping an open mind about. And the other thing that was going on was my boyfriend at the time and I had some deeper conversations about what we saw for our lives, what we saw for our vocations, what we saw for our families. And there was just no meshing of what our hearts really wanted for our futures, despite that we had been compatible in this season of life. It didn't make sense if we were both going to pursue our dreams. And so we ended that relationship, and I had the knee operation, and that put me flat on my back, considering all the things that I had hoped for this year looking like. And now here I lay with no basketball career, no colleges, and no boyfriend. And it was a hard pill to swallow for a senior girl. And but looking back, I know that was the plan to get me to surrender, so that God could continue working out what He had in mind. So I had accepted an invitation to a college in Kansas to come and interview for a scholarship. They were a small school, a Bible college, Manhattan Christian College, and they didn't offer any athletic scholarships, but they had a leadership scholarship that was significant. And the reason I accepted it at this school, because I had grown up in Indiana, was I had visited this school on a revival with my youth group. And I remember thinking to myself the year earlier that I had been on this trip, this is such an amazing school, and I have such a peace here that if I wasn't playing basketball, I'd love to come to a place like this. But there was something inside me, that feeling that I had lacked at the previous college, that feeling of home and seeing myself being able to grow here and to flourish into who I knew God was calling me to be, and the character I was trying to develop at the time. I knew this was the place that God had for me. And even if no one at the time could see that clearly, He impressed that on my spirit, and I received a very sweet affirmation from Him at a chapel service I attended while I was there. And that song that I had heard at the first college that woke me from that sleep and had washed my spirit with that peace, I had continued to search for that song and used words that I could remember, but I'd only heard it a few times and I couldn't find it anywhere. It was the Mercy Me, I Can Only Imagine, and believe it or not, it had not been played a lot at that time. But when I went to chapel service at Manhattan Christian College on that trip for that scholarship, a girl got up and that was the special that she sang. And for me, it was just another affirmation that you don't know what's going on, you're not supposed to, trust me. And so I went back home and back into senior year, one foot in front of the other. 4 months later, my grandfather, who had been a pastor at a church in Kansas for 32 years, announced that he was going to retire. And that church had decided that they wanted my dad to move his family from Indiana to Kansas and be the new senior pastor of what was Johnson County Christian Church, a legacy Christian church. So now the pieces began to fall into place, and God's plan began to reveal itself. And we began to see how he had been working on this and keeping our family together and controlling the situation. He was proving himself faithful, and we were getting to see it unfold. We moved to Kansas just a day or two after my graduation of high school, and I began my degree with Manhattan Christian College the following fall semester. I met my husband the day before school started, and I have to stop the story there because the impact that decision had on the last 2 decades of my life has been, you can't count those things. My friendships today, our relationships that I made there, my spiritual development, my Bible education, all of these things have contributed to more of God's plan as it has revealed itself in his time, not mine, throughout my life. So I'm very thankful for what at the time was the hardest thing I'd been through. And I'm very thankful for the times that he allows us to go through things that require our surrender. Because that's when we really get to see his glory and power working in our lives, and that's when he's really due the credit of it all. Well, just the mere fact that this is one of the times in my life that God proved himself trustworthy with the unknown, and you can break that down as far as you want to. Every day is unknown, and I can either try to make my plans and bring him along with me, or I can surrender those plans and seek him every day, knowing that his ways are higher than my ways, his better is better than my better. And so seeing what has been accomplished in my life by the circumstances where he took my plans away from me and gave me his plans, I don't think I have any other choice but to say I'd rather go his route. But I know that requires a heart of surrender and trusting in him first. What I really want to say to those that are in that season of life where you've been thrown a curveball and your plans have been disrupted is don't rush the waiting room. That waiting room is where God does his best work in us. It's where we loosen our grip on the things of this world. It's where we loosen our grip on self-sufficiency. And when we loosen that grip, we can take hold of what he has for us. And especially those in the season of life where you have the whole world before you. I remember coming out of college, just the blank canvas. And I got caught up so many times with concerns over what was going to happen and where was my life going to go and what was the new choice I needed to make. And God can be trusted with those decisions, and his timing can be trusted with those decisions. And when we trust in him and we trust in that timing, we train ourselves in that surrender. We train ourselves for seasons of life that are coming with harder curveballs, with more intense circumstances, that to be able to wait and to be still and to know he is God will bring good fruit. And we will be able to better see His power and glory working in those situations. And we will just quiet and wait until He reveals His hand.
Thank you so much for tuning into Angie's story. If this story resonated with you, or you know someone who this story might touch, please feel free to share it. We love magnifying God's faithfulness in stories that might not ever be heard. If you have a story to share, please email girlfriendswithgrace@gmail.com so that we can boast in the one who redeems.
Also, please join along for our 6-day devotional series, which will correlate with the message of Angie's story, rejoicing in the rerouting seasons of life. The series will begin tomorrow, so follow along on our Facebook and Instagram pages. From Girlfriends with Grace, this has been Morgan and Kelsey. We'll see you guys next time.